Thank you for listening to Comics for Fun and Profit. This is Drew with a special episode of my other podcast that I co-host regularly, and it's Weekly Comic Spotlight over at John Mayo's comic book page. And for those of you who haven't heard it, I wanted to give you a chance to listen to it. It's a standard review show of a Marvel, a DC, and an independent comic each week. So check this out, and if you like it, go over there and subscribe or check out those episodes. They're a lot of fun. So thanks again for listening. Here you go.
This is Weekly Comics Spotlight 527 for comics originally released on September 13th, 2017. Now, starting us off in DC is Mr. Miracle. This is issue number 2 of 12. I do think it's a little, I don't say aggressive, but optimistic for them to keep doing 12-issue limited series. They've been doing it with Commandy. They've done it with Shade early in the New 52. But by and large, I don't know that DC has had a whole lot of great success with things they announce as miniseries, but
I think Shade was Young Animal. Are you
you're
talking about
thinking
the other Shade?
The other Shade. You're thinking Shade the Changing Girl. I'm thinking Shade from the Starman stuff.
So that was back in 2011 then?
Yeah.
At the launch?
Early, not at the launch, but within a year of it.
Okay. I seem to have forgotten that one.
It was one of those that their miniseries were falling fast and furious. That for them to have announced, and it may have been a little later than that, but for them to have announced a 12-issue one seemed, again, optimistic. Of all of the New Gods characters to do it with, I do think Mr. Miracle is probably the smart one to do it with. He seems to fit nicer with the superhero crowd that DC's got, in terms of characters and readers, I think. Most of the others, I think, either you're into the Fourth World stuff or you're not. And I kind of fall a little more into the not category. So probably out of the DC Kirby characters, limiting it to, the New Gods and that sort of stuff. I mean, he did a lot of work on Jimmy Olsen and a lot of other stuff, but those were characters that predate him. Mr. Miracle is probably my favorite. But that's because he's one that I think, again, fits nicely with the Justice League. He's got a super heroic, upbeat nature to him. He's not just this super powerful being like Orion, Light Ray, or half the other New Gods. This story, though, is very much set squarely in the New Gods realm in terms of what it's all about and all of that kind of stuff. And not really a major plus for me. Wasn't a turnoff, although sometimes when they get too much with New Genesis and Apocalypse, it's like, yeah, I don't really care that much. But this issue stuck to a 9-panel grid religiously. And it worked reasonably well, but for me it kind of came across as an attempt to write for television. Now granted, these are portrait panels versus landscape panels, but it's the same basic idea. If you've got a static image size and aspect ratio and a fixed viewpoint into the world, if you will. And there were a lot of things that sort of played out of time elapsing at a certain rate in things that I felt were very cinematic. I mean, the opening page where, one of these aliens gets their head blown off. I can't tell if it's a parademon or not. I don't think it is. But anyways, it's one of those things that feels like an episode opening for television. And I don't mind that kind of cinematic storytelling, but there does come a point where it's a little too slow and takes a little too much space to convey those sorts of things in a comic book. I mean, there was a 3-page scene, or part of a scene, really just the whole thing was Scott and Barda needing to kneel down before Orion. And it's like, okay, I get where they're going. It's a good character moment to a degree. It certainly sets the tone, the style, but 3 pages for that? That's a little slow. But despite that, it didn't feel like there was a lack of material in the issue. I mean, there was some stuff here. It just, it was slow. There was a couple of pages didn't even have any dialogue. It's all, let's look at this, let's do this, let's let the scene play out. And it's the kind of thing that would be a really good TV scene. But again, sluggish on a comic book page, in my opinion. Add to the fact that some of the other main characters of Orion and Lightway were just complete jerks. And I'm not saying that's out of character for it, it's just I didn't particularly like them. Fortunately, I like Scott Free and Barda enough that I enjoyed this comic, but I don't know if it's necessarily for everybody. And certainly it's a different kind of storytelling style than I think we typically get over at DC.
Yeah, but it's very typical of a Vertigo storytelling, and it's very, very reminiscent of the Sheriff of Baghdad / Sheriff of Babylon story that Tom King and Mitch Gerads told over there, right down to the 9-panel grid reliance, which is something both. I think it's more of a Tom King thing than a Mitch Gerads thing, but they seem to play well with each other and really complement each other's style. And this thing kind of caught me off guard with its last issue, with some of the themes it was introducing and some of the things that Mr. Miracle was going through, and that really propelled me into this issue. And when I get here, there's kind of some more questions as to exactly what is wrong with Mr. Miracle. He's not quite he doesn't quite have his faculties all together, but I really like him. I really like he and Barda's relationship. It really works well together. They work well together. And this Granny Goodness character who I remember vaguely, but I don't remember where from, and I didn't have a really good grasp of her before, but really kind of stormed onto the page and chewed some scenery. Really kind of stole the center portion of this story away from the main characters and became alive in her kind of first villainy. Then maybe she's good, and maybe it doesn't matter. It was a really cool arc for that character to take, and I was kind of enthralled with that character and who she was and just what exactly is happening now, because of the things that took place in this issue. I was really, really fascinating. These are characters that I don't have any real affinity for, but yet this has grabbed me in such a way and surprised me along the way. And it really surprises me, the twists and turns that happen in this. I don't really see what's coming around the corner, and it's really kind of exciting. This is a series that I know I will finish. I know I will read all 12 because there's so much cool stuff in here, and I want to see where it goes. It's been really interesting to just go from really no concern for these characters to, wow, there's definitely some different levels to these characters, and I want to know more about them. And I thought this was a really exciting ride of an issue with issue 2.
I will say that King, particularly with Granny Goodness, did a really good job with that character, because she came across much more sympathetic and nuanced of, again, can we trust her or not, than in pretty much every other time I've encountered the character. Now, where you might be familiar with the character from is she was in some of the Justice League and Superman cartoons during the Bruce Timm era. She was voiced by Ed Asner.
Yeah, I didn't watch any of this.
Ah, okay. She might have also been ever so briefly on maybe an episode of Smallville or something. But she's been one that's been she's again one of the Hallmark characters or whatever of the New Gods. Once you get past kind of the core circle, she's one of the key, I guess, supporting cast members, I would say. Really, once you get past Darkseid, Highfather, Orion, Mr. Miracle, Barda, Calabac, Desaad, then you start getting into Granny Goodness, Light Ray, some of the others or whatnot. But she was really well used here, and I did enjoy that aspect. I think part of it, though, is it's hard for me to get too invested in kind of what's going on in Apocalypse and so forth, and they haven't really given us the full backstory of what's the current events there. But I expect that to happen during the duration of the run. They've got another 10 issues. That's plenty of space to tell quite a bit of story, and I'm looking forward to it, but this is one of those things where, while I like Mr. Miracle, I've read other stories of his that have clicked with me more, and a lot of those tend to be more on the superhero side or take of the character than the New God version of the character. And that's just where my tastes lie. I think this was decent, but not, if I had to cut down to 5 DC books, this wouldn't be one of them. If I had to drop 5 DC books, this wouldn't be one of them.
I don't remember you being a big fan of the Vision, Tom King's interpretation of the Vision either. Is that correct?
I liked what he did with the series, but it was, again, different storytelling style and whatnot. So it's a matter of, it takes me a little while to get used to the kind of story he wants to tell and the way he wants to tell it versus what I'm used to getting with these characters. Does that kind of make sense?
Yeah. I wasn't sure, because I think if Vision clicks with you, I think this will as well. It's kind of that sort of examination of a character.
Well, and that series worked better for me near the end of the run versus the beginning of the run, because it had time to kind of build up some momentum and get going. And once I saw kind of where he was going, got comfortable with what he was doing with the character versus where did these kids come from and such, I appreciated the depth of the character examination in the story he did, and I'm hoping to get to that point here. But as a single issue, while this was good, it didn't particularly wow me or anything. Nor would I necessarily expect it to. He's telling a 12-part story, and this is just one aspect of it.
I really like Mitch Gerrard's as an artist. There were times when I thought, well, I don't know if you needed the 9-panel grid here, and it would have been nice to just blow up one of those panels and just let me glory and revel in your artistry a little more. And that could have been fun as well. But I see what they're doing, and I like the storytelling style. I think he could have probably broken a couple of those panels into a big splash page or so, or at least a half or something, and really let me look at some of the art, because I really like the guy's art style, and I think that coupled with just a grabber for me. It really grabbed me. This story is something that I want to know more of. I want to know how it turns out. I want to know what happens next. I'm really excited about where this thing's going. So, it's almost up there, but for me, it's an A-, and it's something that I definitely would recommend to others.
Interesting. Okay. I think that, I guess the story itself is clicking with you a lot more than it is with me, because I haven't really been kind of hooked into the overall plot and whatnot so far. So for me, it's sitting at a B-, but again, your comparison to the Vision, I think, is a good one. And that's one where early on, it's like, where are they going with this? What are they doing? And by the time it had gotten, the near the end of the series and things were getting the payoff, we'd really built up a lot of story and things had happened and changed, and you could see where it was going and stuff. I enjoyed it a lot more. So like I said, I'm hoping to get to that point with this series too. Shall we move on to our Marvel book? This is Secret Empire Omega #1. This pretty much finishes off the Secret Empire storyline. They may have one or two epilogue aftermath sort of things. How much of Secret Empire have you read?
All of it.
All of it? Just the series? Did you read all the side miniseries, all the tie-ins?
I actually got sucked into quite a few of the side quests and things. I was surprised because I didn't think I was going to, and that kind of checked out a little more than I thought I was. But definitely all of the miniseries, I felt I was drug into that, and it was top of the stack reading for me.
I had mixed feelings on Secret Empire. Early on, I was intrigued with where they were going. I liked the build-up to it in the Captain America Steve Rogers series. But there came a point where the series kicked off, Captain America kind of took over, Hydra's in charge, and then it was just this constant, I don't even want to say battle, but the lack of progress the heroes had made in fighting back and whatnot, the pacing of the story felt odd to me. With this particular issue, the art really, I mean, I've seen this sort of art style before, but it's one of those where it's almost, I'm going to say impressionistic. Like you get the impression they might have, wanted to finish drawing but didn't quite get around to it or something. Again, a lot of things are lost in the shadows, kind of murky. It's almost like, there's like some sort of filter on the lens of the camera, if you will, to not give you quite the level of crispness or detail, I might want at least. And the fact that this entire issue was basically, Steve Rogers, talking to evil Steve Rogers. I mean, there's no way to avoid kind of that sort of a spoiler if people haven't gotten to the end of Secret Empire. They redeem Cap by pulling another Cap out of a cosmic cube, literally. In this issue, they're talking about how certain characters have been killed off in the storyline. Jack Flag from, early in the Captain America Steve Rogers series, Rick Jones during the course of Secret Empire, Black Widow. And as they're listing them off, I'm thinking, I wonder which one's going to come back first. Now, I'm pretty sure Jack Flag, yeah, he's going to be dead the longest. He's just not that popular of a character, either with the fans or the writers. There's nothing to really pull him back. But I think before we even got to the end of this issue, there was hints that Black Widow might already be back. Rick Jones, just give it time. Certain of these characters are effectively immortal. It's almost like how in Fables, the more popular the fairy tale was, the more resilient the person was.
I kind of got the sense that Black Widow maybe had never died.
That's possible too. It's hard to tell these days. I thought there was something where we had seen her get killed off, but I can't. I'm not positive of that. Either way, people are thinking she's dead and she's gonna come back. That's
definitely that.
That's gonna happen. This issue itself felt a little padded. Some of the gutters were really long, wide or whatever. Okay, fine. There were a few places where we had like one or two 2-page splashes, and it felt like you pretty much could have covered that in a tighter 1-page splash. And it wasn't bad. I enjoyed the art and stuff. It just felt a little stretched out. And a lot of Secret Empire itself felt a little lackluster to me, with the quick takeover and the slow advance of the heroes to fight back or whatnot. And then what I felt was a Deus Ex Machina kind of a resolution of, well, we need somebody to take down Cap. Who better than Cap himself? And poof, we get the old Steve Rogers back as if by magic. And it seemed like the whole point of the exercise was to taint Captain America's reputation so he has to struggle to regain it. And okay, fine. That's just not the kind of story I want with Captain America. You know, if you want to go do that with Tony Stark or some other characters that frankly I'm less attached to, I'm more willing to go with that. But to take the hero's hero of Steve Rogers in the Marvel Universe and get it to where people feel he can't be trusted and shouldn't be trusted, okay, you've earned that out of this. And this issue had some really good points about how the quote-unquote evil Cap or whatever, Hydra Cap, really hadn't broken any laws and hadn't done anything wrong, but just took advantage of a situation that was ripe for taking advantage of.
And he capitalized on Cap's good name and good reputation. And he didn't actually earn any of that, but yet, used Steve Rogers' life and kind of usurped it there for a little while. And I thought that was just a brilliant point made. And really kind of one of many in this that really kind of punctuated what Nick Spencer was trying to do here, and what I think he really accomplished well.
Had those things been obvious to you prior to reading this issue?
Well, I'm not really sure why this thing is 10 plus an Omega instead of the original 8 that was pitched. I'm not sure if that if it's a purposeful thing that is that is marketing and sales driven, or if it is an actual happy accident over and over again. I don't like that practice, and it annoys me. But yeah, there was probably not 11 issues worth of stuff in this. It was probably closer to the original 8 or 9, whatever it was originally solicited as. And so, yeah, I mean, I think 10 kind of buttoned everything up really well, and probably didn't need this. But there was a lot of great stuff in here too.
My question was this issue needed or not, but this issue raised a lot of points about what had happened in terms of the Hydra Cap taking advantage of the situation and leveraging the real Steve Rogers reputation and such.
Right. How
much of that needed to be pointed out? How much of that was kind of obvious?
Oh, I don't think that point had been made. No.
And I would agree with you there, but it kind of makes me wonder how effective the storytelling was if it wasn't until here that it really clued into me that, oh yeah, this guy just kind of walked into a situation that was ripe for the plucking, and maybe some of the storytelling was a little too subtle in some of the previous stuff that they had to actually bring it to the surface through exposition for us to pick up on that. There's something about that both works for me and doesn't work for me. That there was an underpinning to be had, but then they feel the need to kind of pull back the curtain and show it to us. Not sure how to take that myself.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I think you've been on the other end of that argument as well, where it's been telegraphed and hammered home. So why are they reiterating it as well? So I don't know what the answer is.
There's a middle ground. Don't telegraph it, but don't have to tell us afterwards either.
Yeah, and if this is afterwards, or if this is part of the plan all along, that this is how the story was going to unfold with the conversation in the cell. I
kind of think it was. It seems to be a callback to Civil War. After Steve had died and Tony was talking to him, trying to apologize or whatnot for what had happened during Civil War. To me, this was echoes of that.
Yeah, it was I really think the series itself had such a nice bookend with the introduction of the new mutant, and then him having to save the day with the cosmic cube regurgitation. I just think that was just such a nice bookend and really was a great way to end the story. It's too bad they couldn't have tacked this on as an epilogue to that 10th issue. Instead of kind of separating it into its own thing. I mean, that would be my one criticism is I really like the way the story kind of unfolded in the series itself, and to have this Omega afterwards kind of is a little redundant. But I do think the conversation was good and strong, and really, helped set up for what's coming next, and that unfortunately we might see this person again down the road with a different face. And that's kind of interesting.
A different face? Why not hang on to the one he's got? He wouldn't be the first guy to be running around looking like Steve Rogers other than Steve Rogers.
We can't do it. I can't do it. I can't take no more. He's got to change his face. Please change your face.
I think if somebody could beef up the Cerebro in the Marvel Universe to just be a DNA detector, and it's like, okay, we've got Steve Rogers' DNA, let's find the guy, and you wind up realizing there's about 8 things pinging as that's where he is. Because I think there are quite a few people with there's the real one and a few other doppelgangers of sorts floating about, which is just ridiculous. I mean, at one point, the Red Skull would have been one of those, because he was in a cloned body of Steve Rogers.
Yeah, that's another one of your characters that they're dead, but for how long?
Oh yeah, he'll definitely come back. And, I mean, having another evil Cap. I mean, we had Bad Cap at one point, which was the Cap of the 50s, and we had Super Patriot that was kind of a bad Cap. You could argue U.S. Agent. I mean, to varying degrees. Certainly this is the first one that's actually taken over the world and had it ruled by Hydra, or at least America, but you know what I mean. This was not a bad issue for what it was. I didn't feel the ending of the event worked as well as you seem to have. I really could have done without an Inhuman being introduced whose abilities to barf up what's needed, the plot device of the moment or what have you. And then for him to literally barf up part of a cosmic cube, I felt was ridiculous. And then how they used it was even more of a almost a writing cheat to get out of well, how do we redeem Captain America after he has done this? Well, declare he didn't do it. And I get they almost needed to go that route. I don't know how many other ways to backpedal on that you could go, but I prefer it when they don't have to backpedal.
You must find comics frustrating then.
At times, yeah.
Because they do a lot of backpedaling.
Well, to me, if you're telling a good story, you should always be able to move forward. You shouldn't have to undo what you've just done. And when you tell stories knowing that you're going to have a cheat to get out of it, that bothers me, when there's no consequences to a story.
I don't know. We were praising Scott Snyder for his run on Batman.
And I think I said with that final one, I was a little frustrated by how he had kind of put all the toys back where he found them.
Yeah.
You know, and undid much of the stuff.
That's kind of what Nick Spencer did here. He definitely put his toys back, most of them unharmed, a few with a little bit of scars. But yeah, it's kind of back to normal. And I really like the Andrea Sorrentino art, and I really like some of the inventive panel layouts and full spreads and double page spreads. And I thought it really worked art wise. I was really kind of really enjoyed some of the panels and kind of lingered over them for a while, and thought they were fun. But I do see where there were some kind of monochromatic panels that didn't really have a lot of detail in them. So I see what you're saying. But there were some that I really enjoyed, and I think overall I really enjoyed the way he told the story with the visuals. I think this put a pin on this event, and there was a lot of fun stuff in here. I wish he kind of would have done it in its original packaging, but for me this worked really well, as did the whole series. So I'm going to give this a B+, and I really liked it.
I'm going to go with a B-. I think this issue and the series had some moments, but overall I was hoping for more than I felt I got. But I think the fact that it went extra issues and some of that stuff, that's just par for the course for a Marvel event these days.
But I mean, I think you and Sam have had this conversation where is it on purpose? I mean, it's happened so frequently, it kind of has to be planned that way, right?
It sure feels that way. It feels like they're manufacturing announcements of, it's such a big story, we've had to give it extra pages. Even that couldn't contain it. We need another issue. It's so epic. And it's like, yeah, maybe it is, maybe it's not. But if you can't go telling me up front, you've got this meticulously planned, you've got it all laid out, and then realize you need another 10% of story space. You know, it's not like you were off by a page or two and decided, ooh, a double page spread here would really sell the thing better. Okay, fine. I'm good if you toss an extra couple of pages here. Or if the extra pages had just been sprinkled throughout the entire run. But again, the fact that they need that extra issue, that we're getting the Omega, that we're doing all these other things, it's that they have the Brave New World, the Underground, the United one-shots and miniseries and such. It felt like they were milking it a little bit. And I'm not saying they're wrong to do that. Comics it's a business and they need to make money, but I don't know. It's
it happens so frequently that it seems really silly and contrived. And why are you insulting our intelligence this way?
At some point, somebody's going to do an event series that really is meticulously planned and is just tight writing, edge of your seat reading, and just completely wows us from week to week or however often it comes out, and will reset the bar for what an event series is and can and should be. But I don't know when that'll happen. Yeah. I mean, I can't I know this has happened a lot, and I'm trying to think the last time a Marvel event series ended when it was supposed to. Maybe Age of Ultron, or did it have an Omega as well? I thought it had some delays, but I could be wrong on that. I was almost thinking House of M. I don't know when the last time a Marvel series went off without a hitch, a delay, or an extension.
Yeah.
And by hitch, I don't mean Brian Hitch. I'm fine with him. Yeah.
He's usually the reason for the delay.
But he's good art, so, it's a tough call. We'll see what happens moving forward. At some point, somebody's going to bring Hydra Kappa back, and if they've got a good story, that's great. And if they don't, that's going to be annoying.
I don't think it'll be Nick Spencer. I don't think he's going to touch this story ever again with a 10-foot pole. I mean, he paid the price on social media. He's been skewered, butchered, bashed, run through the ringer. And I can't see him going down this road again in any kind of controversial fashion.
If this story had been told 15, 20 years ago, it's the exact sort of thing like an Ed Brubaker would be able to pull out and tell an amazing story on, just like he did with Winter Soldier and such. So I think there are things that future writers down the line can really do with this, but there's risk involved with that. Not just the whole, how well was the story received or whatever, but do we really need an evil Cap, etc. Now, if they can find a costumed identity for the evil Cap that is a good antithesis for Captain America or whatever, that could be really interesting. But we've had other characters of that ilk before, so I don't know.
Yeah, and without the Cosmic Cube on his side, I really don't think he's going to be that much of a threat.
But there are multiple Cosmic Cubes and the ability to make them, so he will come back at some point, and probably a Cosmic Cube will be involved. Doesn't have to be, but could be the Infinity Gauntlet. Who knows?
Yeah, never thought about that. You're right.
Shall we move on to our other book?
Yes.
This is The Realm #1 from Image Comics. This is one that I opted not to pre-order, so I read the press PDF of this, and it's not a bad issue. It's not one that I expect to continue with, because it's really not in my wheelhouse and the sort of story I'm seeking out. It's, in my mind, yet another post-apocalyptic world, and I'm just not looking for another narrative of people struggling to survive in a rundown, half-destroyed world or whatever. If I were, though, I would certainly consider this title. The story's not bad. It's not, oh my god, brilliant, I've never seen anything like it before. I've seen post-apocalyptic stuff, and it hits a lot of the notes, but it does it well. I felt we got to know the lead character, this Will Nolan or whatever, reasonably well. I thought he was set up, and we were shown the setup, not told the setup. And some of his supporting cast of Rook and a few others, we get to see in action, and we get to see enough of the world to get the general sense of it, but also there are enough things it's like, oh, wait a sec, I don't get what happened in that scene, and no doubt that'll be clarified later. So there's things that are foreshadowing and teases and stuff, but I felt like I got enough to get the broad brushstrokes with what looked like the promise of many more things of detail to get painted in later, if you will. But it felt like it could have been another television series like Revolution, Falling Skies, or at one point it seemed like, every season was kicking out another dystopic kind of a world. And that's just, I prefer a little bit more upbeat sorts of futures. But overall, the art worked well for me. There were some places it got a little gory, there was a lot of killing and stuff, but it's a post-apocalyptic story. It's kill or be killed. That's nature of the story, the genre.
Mm-hmm.
But it comes down to, if I had more slots open on my reading list, of which I have, I think, a negative number, and if I was looking to add something, I would seriously consider this. I thought it was well-told story, a lot of promise of things to come, but not something that is in my wheelhouse and that I feel that I need to continue with. But it's certainly well done.
Yeah, I really thought it was well executed for a first issue. I really liked the character. Really gave me a Road Warrior feel. The escorting of the woman across into enemy hands, and with the kind of the twist there, and then the fact that they're doing it for hire. We've seen a lot of these things before. There's a lot of stuff in here that's very familiar in a variety of media, be it TV, film, or other post-apocalyptic comics.
Mm-hmm.
But I really liked the way it all came together about 85-90% of this book. And then we get to the end, and it really took a turn that I don't know if I want it. I don't know if I want it to go in that direction. Feels like some kind of supernatural element, some kind of possession of some sort, or alien thing going on, or I don't know. It like you said, it probably will be revealed in future issues. But I don't know if we need to go in that direction. We were having a fun time. It was really going along really nicely. And then I just felt like that kind of didn't work at the end. I didn't like that part. But maybe that's what they're offering as a unique take on what is a very familiar story that we both have kind of read a lot. And although well done, what is your hook? Well, maybe it's this thing that their angle that they have at the end that's to be determined. But I don't know if I want
what is your point of distinction? What makes you different than all of these others?
Yeah.
And I certainly thought those scenes, because I thought there were two there at the end, but certainly the very end, and there was one before it, that seemed to be where they were trying to say, yeah, you've seen stuff like this, but this is different. This is new. This is, whatever.
But I don't know if I want to read that comic. I would read the comic that I read up to that point. I liked that. I thought it was really well done. Although familiar, it was really well done. And I had fun, and I rooted for him, and I wanted him the next mission to be successful. And I was excited to see how he gets from point A to point B. He seems really capable and smart, and that could be fun for a while. But maybe not interesting enough for the creators.
I think if they had stopped before that last scene, maybe toned down the gore just a little bit, I might have been a little more likely to keep going with it. But I think the way you phrase this of it is familiar is a great way to put it, because it is familiar. We've seen, again, these tough guys got to escort somebody through the dangerous part of the world or whatever sorts of things before in post-apocalyptic story. But what it is not is derivative or feeling like it's just going through the motions.
Yeah.
It owns the genre and does a good job with it. It doesn't just fit with here are the standard conventions or whatever. It tries to do, its own spins on a few things. And I appreciate that, because there have been a few others where it's like, well, they were trying to tell this sort of a genre story or this formula of a story, and by golly, they knew the formula, they followed it to the letter, and it lacked energy, it lacked style, it lacked pizzazz, it lacked anything, That wasn't the case here. They sold the story they were telling. Even though we've seen stuff like it before, I didn't feel like, geez, this is just derivative of.
Yeah.
It is like something else, but not inferior to necessarily that something else. And I want to be clear on that, because I think we've reviewed one or two other things where it's like, we've seen this shtick before, we've seen these elements put together in a very similar thing. Here's the obvious turn, and oh, look, they made the obvious turn, or something like that.
Yeah, or we've seen this before, done much better than this. And I don't know if that's the case here. I mean, I think this is like there's a lot here that I thought was really done well, and this character was really done well and really fleshed out and great. But then at the end kind of threw me a little bit. I'm going to stick around for a few more issues because that's what I do with Image stuff. I'm in pretty heavily with them, and I give them a little more rope than I give some other things. So I'll stick around for a while, but it is something that I'm a little concerned about, because Killer Be Killed by Ed Brubaker went in this direction early on and has kind of righted the ship since then. But I'm always concerned when we say, well, let's take this genre and mash this other genre in there, and won't that be fun and fresh? Well, usually it's kind of just not. So I'm concerned it's not going to go the way I want it to. But I really enjoyed this issue, and I had a lot of fun with it. So I'm sticking around for a little while.
Let me know how it goes, because I'm curious. I think even if you say it's brilliant, I'm not really looking for a post-apocalyptic high fantasy adventure series.
Right.
So the odds of me coming back to this are low, but not zero. It is well done. This is a creative team that certainly I would be curious to see what they would do either before or after this, because they know how to tell a comic book story. They know how to tell a good comic book story.
Well, Jeremy Hahn writes The Beauty Image, and it's about 15 issues in, and is fast becoming one of my favorite comics. It's really been a strong procedural, and in a new world and with new rules. And so, yeah, he really knows how to create a world that I want to explore. So that's why, since he's half the writing team on here, and I'm not sure, how that works when they're co-writers, who does what and how the chores are separate. But he's involved in some way, and I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt and kind of explore this a little bit more. Fun stuff. I think this is worth checking out. It's a strong B for me, and I would recommend definitely checking this out. It's a good comic.
I'm right there with you at a solid B. If this is the sort of thing you're into, definitely check it out. I don't think you'll be disappointed. It's just I don't tend to gravitate towards this sort of a thing, which is why I'm not planning on continuing with it. But certainly quality stuff. Now, since we recorded last week, I have read...
Here we go. Drum roll.
8 comics, 9 if you count this one that we just talked about. But I'm not, because it's not in my stack to read. So I have made negative progress. I was at the point where I was closing in on I was nearly, within arm's reach of getting under 100 comics or whatever, and now or 150, I should say, 150. Now I'm almost at 250 again. I had some stuff going on this weekend and recorded a few episodes on the number, one on the numbers and whatnot that'll go up soonish. So I haven't had, actually, by the time this goes up, the one I did with Sam may already be up. So I haven't had the reading time. So I'm hoping to carve out a bit of time to do that, because I'm back on the upward trend, which I don't like. But it was a big week. I had like 62 comics arrive yesterday. And they arrived Monday, yesterday, as we record this on Tuesday. It looks like DCBS has moved to Memphis, and that seems to be slowing down getting my books for whatever reason. I'm hoping that's just as they get used to the new locale or whatever. But I'm not overly thrilled on getting my books Monday versus Friday. But we'll see what happens. But yeah, plenty of stuff to read. I've probably got, from this week and last week, probably 50 books just between Marvel and DC waiting to be read.
Well, as we record this, the solicits are being leaked early and retracted and then leaked again, and now I think they're officially out. So a lot of the online solicits are all out now. So you can check some of those out on the forum and stake your claim for Preview Spotlight, the next Preview Spotlight that's coming up. It was kind of funny to see the data being leaked and people scrambling to glean information before it disappeared. That was kind of a fun little tremor out there.
I wish I had been on the ball and realized what was going on at that point and had a little time. Didn't find out until afterwards, because I don't think it would have been that hard for me to have been able to suck down enough of the data to... Granted, it would have only given me, a few days head start on really nothing, because I don't need that data at the moment until I get to the number crunching. But you get the idea.
Yeah.
Sometimes having that in advance is nice. Other times...
Good fun to play with, yeah.
Doesn't really matter. The one that got me is there were 2 announcements or whatever for Marvel. I think it's Tales of Suspense, Tales to Astonish, one of those 2.
Yeah, you said they were using the same
They're using the
run?
same run that they used for Captain America, the 1 through 99, so that one can start at 100 or some such. But Marvel 2-in-1, which had a 100-issue run back in the day with The Thing as the star, and this is going to be Marvel 2-in-1 with The Thing and the Human Torch, it's starting at number 1.
What?
If I had any sort of graphic design ability, I would have by now put together a number of fake legacy, renumbering images. One for say Falcon, where it's Falcon 1 through 4 crossed out, and then, Falcon whatever it's at now, and then just Falcon 1, and I would have done the same for Rocket Raccoon and listed the different titles he's had, because he's had like 5, I think. And then just do, again, Rocket number 1 or Rocket number 4,000 or some such,
So they're saying that there is no cachet in a Marvel 2-in-1 legacy number, which I think is completely wrong.
I would have started that at 101.
Or wherever it left off.
It left off at 100.
Oh, well, there you go. Then I would have done that too. Yeah. If they bring back Marvel Team Up, I want them to start where it ended.
Well, that's a little more complicated, because it went for 150 issues, and then it had another short run or 2 or 3. So I'd have to go look up where it would have been considered to ended. somewhere potentially close to 200, which would be, I think, grounds for them to go use that numbering.
Yeah.
What's confusing me is it looks like there are a couple of one-shots that they've snuck in under the Legacy banner as if it were going to be an ongoing, like Power Pack, Not Brand Ek, Shang-Chi, or Masters of Kung Fu, I should say. Master of Kung Fu, singular. And I thought there was one other that I thought was going to be an ongoing, but looks like it may just be a one-shot.
So Power Pack is coming back with a Legacy number
For
what?
an issue.
For one issue?
Yeah.
That is so stupid.
I believe so. It's a done-in-one story. It didn't have a series code. I haven't looked at the new Marvel solicits to see if the next issue is listed. I'm willing to guess it is not.
Why?
No. The Marvel question is what if, not why. Well, it was what if. Now it's why.
Okay, yeah. I think I'm buying into Sam's theory that they're just making the numbers up and they're going to get there with whatever math it takes to get there. Because obviously they didn't want to start at 101 because it'd be a long way to go for a milestone number on the Marvel team up. I have no idea why they were just doing one shots. That's dumb. You're not even going to try to make a run out of it. You know, you're going to get buy-in. You're going to get eyeballs on that because you're bringing back that character from a long time ago, those characters from a long time ago, and you're going to get some eyeballs on it. You're not even going to give it a shot as a series?
I think Darkhawk was the other one that goes for single issue, maybe.
Well,
I don't understand the motivation, and I don't understand why. Maybe they were, and I just missed it, but I don't think they were particularly clear that those were one-shots. I don't understand what their game plan is here.
How many times have we said that? I'm really not sure what they're trying to do. I really don't understand what their game plan is. I really don't understand their thinking.
And therefore, do we think it'll work? I mean,
it goes back to sometimes I think we care more than they do.
I don't think it's that we care more than they do. We care in a very different way than they do. This is something that is our hobby, is our passion, and is our escape from our day jobs and such. For them, this is their day job. This is what presumably some of them go home and want to get away from.
We care in different ways, at different levels, I guess.
Yeah. And I think they're trying to do good stuff at all these companies and stuff. I think they're trying to re-energize the base over at Marvel. I just don't think they're going about it the right way, and it almost feels a little hypocritical given the plethora of number ones they've had.
Well, with you telling me that these are all that there are a subset of one shots,
and there's only like 4 or 5.
That really kind of cements the theory that they're going to go back to number ones pretty quickly. They're not going to stick with this legacy numbering for a long time.
But for the one shots, they use the legacy numbering to hide the fact they're one shots.
Oh. Doggone it.
It's out of the box thinking.
I guess. It is frustrating though. This doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense to me.
I mean, to me, that's part of what I find interesting, and part of why I read as much as I do, is I find the marketing of comics as interesting and sometimes more interesting than some of the stories. But to know what's working, what's not, read the stories and say, oh, well, they marketed that right, wrong, or, whatever, is, again, to me, fascinating. It's like, okay, how are you differentiating all these Batman books or these Avenger books or these X-Men books, or should I care? Does it matter? And then when they go through something like a New 52, a Rebirth, a Legacy, a Secret Wars, which I equate Secret Wars to DC's Crisis on Infinite Earths, that they did at roughly the same point in their publishing history, I think. About 50 years in on each. Anyways, the way they try to keep us as readers engaged, it's fun to watch, it's interesting to see. Sometimes it's incredibly frustrating to watch. It's like, they think I'll fall for that? Come on, fool me once, shame on me, sort of thing. But it's gotten to the point where the old rules aren't working, so they've got to come up with different approaches. To the point that Valiant, I think one of their books that they I was seeing on the Slack channel, is going to have almost every known cover gimmick known to man on a particular cover. Die cut, lenticular, foil, fifth cover, hologram, just as a spoof of it, sort of a thing. I think they're the guys throwing the bomb on top of the oil derrick on fire, hoping to extinguish it with a bigger explosion. If we do it over the top, maybe that'll burn it out. Don't think it will, but who knows?
Yeah, and meanwhile, there's Time and Vine over at IDW struggling to find space on the rack, a well-crafted story by a creator who never disappoints, and you're going to find it in 1 out of every 5 shops if you're lucky. But we spend all this time consuming the 150, 200 big 2 books that there's no room for the poor guys like Tom Zoller. Frustrating me. It's really maddening.
But that's also part of why the format of the Weekly Comic Spotlight here is a Marvel, a DC, and some other book. Trying to give these other publishers a fair shake, trying to get some awareness out of it. And it also follows pretty much my reading habit of roughly a third DC, roughly a third Marvel, roughly a third other. Now granted, a lot of the other tends to be superhero, sci-fi, that kind of stuff because I'm into it. But I think, while it's easy to say, oh, it'd be nice if it was more than just the big 2, that's what's selling and that's what's keeping the ship afloat. So,
Right, but it's not, to the degree that, 2 out of every 3, that's not my reading list, so.
No, it's different for everybody. And certainly I think the growth potential for the industry is in these smaller publishers and smaller works because they've got the most room they can grow. And if they can hit it big or hit it successful, not even big, but be a slow, quiet sleeper hit or whatever, and profitable over that time, that gets more comics sold, more people in.
It can only happen on the trade side. There's barely an example of any kind of breakout single issue, non-big 2 book besides Walking Dead and Saga.
How often do you expect them to come around?
All the time.
Really?
Yeah. Awesome.
There's the potential for them to come around all the time. It would be nice if they came around all the time. But let's face it, there are a few hit series over at Marvel and DC.
True.
So 1 or 2 a decade, while I would like more, is not, unrealistic or low in terms of a success rate.
Yeah, I guess when you frame it like that, yeah, you're right. There really hasn't been anything. Star Wars.
To me, the question is not why aren't there more big hits or why aren't there more things from the indies doing well or whatever, but taking a look at a cross-section of comics, talking to a cross-section of readers, trying to figure out why does a comic work for them and not work for them. What are the success criteria? What are the things that are actionable items for a creator to do a good book, a publisher and a marketing department to do to get the word out about the book so it goes to the right people?
Yeah. And what happens to these 4th graders through 8th graders who are bringing their Scholastic book order forms home and ordering Ms. Marvel and Gotham Academy and stuff like that, and loving, devouring it through the Scholastic book fair? Where do they go when they get older? Do they, will there be a Barnes and Noble for them? Hopefully, to go to transition to, because I can't see them going to a comic shop.
There's Comixology, other digital venues. There's Amazon. But the question is, do those that are growing up reading those things transition to when they're out of that Scholastic Book Fair venue? Are they hooked enough to keep going? And is there
maybe that's the better question. Is it something that they read during that time and leave behind?
Yeah.
Because I think most of us, not you, but most of us have taken at least a brief hiatus from comics over the years and stopped. And maybe, and some longer than others. But yeah. So I wonder.
But even if they stop, something like the DC Superhero Girls is potentially going to make a bunch of people lifelong fans of those characters. And even if they step away for 5-10 years or whatever, at some point they will come back thinking, you know what? I remember as a kid thinking Batgirl or Wonder Woman or Supergirl or Bumblebee or whoever was a really cool character. I want TV, movies, video games, comics, books, whatever of them. That's a good thing.
It is.
It's the long game. And it comes down to, are we getting to the point where the characters are popular, but the medium is dying out? Don't know. But at some point we'll find out.
Yeah, you're almost to the point where you can see the issue 3, issue 4 and beyond kind of leveling out. What are those what are the real sales beyond the gimmicks? And I think you've mentioned the growing forest of dying trees. And is that trend line continues to kind of dip as people age out of the hobby or die out of the hobby and are not backfilled with enough folks that at least venture into the comic shop to make a difference. What's the tipping point there? I don't know.
Yeah. And it's something that I'm actually quite curious about because, I mean,
That's how you consume your comics.
Well, yeah, I'm going to keep getting comics as long as there's comics to get and I'm able to read them. But at some point, we're going to hit the thing where comics aren't selling enough and those lower rung Marvel and DC books just aren't worth a company that size putting out. So maybe that'll be a heyday for independent comics or some such. Or it could be that enough traffic has gone away that stores start going under and it's a problem and it completely transforms, forcing comics into an all-digital realm, potentially. I'm hoping that's a ways off, but don't know.
Or we go to the print-on-demand model, and there's a nice little kiosk there at the mall, and you just go in and pick whatever comic you want, and it spits it out.
I think it's a great idea. I don't think it's practical.
I don't think so either. But it looked good in all those sci-fi movies.
I think there's a time and a place for print-on-demand, but I don't think comics is it. But, who knows? It's certainly a technology worth following, and if somebody can get to where you could put a kiosk at like a Home Depot or whatever, and they just toss in a cartridge of paper that they've got, truckloads of, and you can go get the book or comic or magazine or whatever you want whenever, and it never goes out of print. That's powerful, but it kills the collectability. It changes things in a number of ways that I question. Even if it were cost effective and feasible, would it work?
Yeah. How do you compensate those creators?
Well, that you just do it on a royalty basis or whatever, but it allows for the long tail, so it benefits the creators. It's just a question of, are you really then going to go chase down a back issue? The whole variant cover thing goes away because, well, I could just print another. Or it changes the variant cover to the first 100 people to print it, get it. But I don't know.
Yeah, the more I think about it, I mean, I don't think there's going to be a lot of long boxes full of comics in the future.
Probably not. Or at least not long boxes worth of new comics being kicked out the way they are now. At some point, that doesn't continue.
Yeah, I think you're right.
Preview Spotlight deadline is going to be October 7th, the morning thereof. That's a Saturday. I'll start putting the episode together whenever I get up and get going on that. And then the following Saturday, the 14th, 7 p.m. Central Time is when we're planning on doing our teleconference for October.
Yeah, it's quite the turnout for that, right?
Yeah, just had the one for September. It was a lot of fun. A lot of good conversations and stuff. Had Randy, had Jason from Hawaii, had Don, had Sam for a little bit, trying to think who else. Fun conversation. Really good time. So, and again, come for as long as you can. Leave when you have to, that sort of thing. Very informal. I just add people to the call as they come and go, and we talk about what we feel like talking about. Anything else? Does that pretty much do it?
That'll do it.